Thank you for staying with us through the day. What a wonderful day this has been. And we have now finally come to the last session of day one of the 8th National Forum of PAFI. As the going goes, they say, save the best for last. And we could not probably ask for a better session to end the day. We have Ambassador Taranjeet Sandhu, who needs no introduction, Indian ambassador to the US. He'll be in conversation with Navika Kumar. Again, Navika needs no introduction. But just to set the context, and as you know, this is the last session of the day, so we will try and wrap it up in about 45 minutes. I know it's late for some of us, but there's so much happening right now between the Indo-US front, almost at every walk of life. I mean, look at the Honorable Prime Minister's visit just about a month back, and from then to now, as we were just discussing before we went live, there were so many visitors that have visited the Washington and kept Ambassador Sandhu so busy. There are a number of things that have happened. This morning, as I picked up the newspaper in Times of India, we had a very interesting editorial by Sanjay Baru, said the geo-economics of the two quads, the quads of East and the quads of West. Of course, I'm referring to the one in which we've had the in-person meeting in Washington, D.C. with Prime Minister Modi and Australian President. And the very interesting one that has just come up last week, which is the meeting between for the External Affairs Minister with his counterparts of UAE, Israel, and of course the US. Between all of this, there's obviously AUKUS, and that has created a little bit of ripple effect in the overall geopolitics. But as they know, as we all say, geoeconomics is not decoupled from geopolitics, and we're going to talk about that. But at the same time, just about a month from now, we are probably less than a month, we are going to have COP26, where John Kerry, the US envoy on climate, says that this is probably our last chance as a humanity to save the planet. And if we miss this chance, this is going to be a very different world as we go forward. And India's commitment to COP21 and all of that has remained absolutely unflinched, and we remain the torchbearer of that commitment to the planet. From planet to people, if you really move in that direction, it was very interesting to watch Ambassador Sandhu, change. You became the ambassador when the previous regime was there. We've never seen such a different outlook of two presidency. But at the same time, if there's one thing that remained common between President Trump's tenure and President Biden, is the Indo-US relationship. It has only grown in stature and depth and all of that. On the business front, it's very interesting to watch US actually pipping China to be the India's topmost trade partner. But at the same time, we've had issues like the iconic US car manufacturer Ford winding up a shop in India because of whatever economic reasons they've had. It was preceded by Harley Davidson doing the same. So there are a lot of activities that's happening in that area, and it'll be good to really hear from you, Ambassador Sandhu. Last but not the least, there's something which really caught my attention. I was reading the autobiography of Indra Nooyi. I worked for Coca-Cola. She's been in the competition, but nonetheless, we all looked up to her. And very interesting anecdote she actually quoted in that autobiography, where in one of the CEOs forum, when President Obama introduced her to then Prime Minister Dr. Singh's first remark was, "She's one of us." And President Obama said, "She's one of us too." In many ways, that really reflects the relationship that India and United States has. We are probably joined at the hip. We are probably the outcome of similar democratic principles and values and ethos. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Navika. The way this session is structured is Navika will introduce Ambassador Sandhu. Ambassador Sandhu will make the opening remark, and then we'll get into a more of a conversation. And in the end, my colleague Vinita will conclude the session. Over to you, Navika. You mute. You on mute, Navika.
Thank you very much, and thank you to PAFI for organizing this session. It may be late for some of you, but for us, it's called prime time. And we are very well versed with prime time. I'm very happy to introduce Ambassador Sandhu. And Ambassador Sandhu, I also, besides politics, do strategic conversations. And I promise you, this is going to be sticking to Indo-US strategic partnership. No politics in it, and that can also make for very good and interesting prime time. Ambassador Sandhu, the floor is yours to make your opening comments on how you've straddled and the context of you having this unique position of straddling from the Trump administration and India's relationship to now Biden administration and India's relationship. And we would love to hear from you. Uh, how has the transition been, and how has India's relationship with the United States moved through this transition?
To Navika, and it's a pleasure to be with you, my good friend Ajay Khanna, Vanita, Mr. Ray, leadership of PAFI, Ishtiaq, and of course, friends. I'm delighted to be here. The Public Affairs Forum of India has brought together various stakeholders in innovative and mutually enriching ways despite the challenges of pandemic. So I compliment the organizers. You have already heard from a number of eminent personalities in different fields earlier today, including a number of senior ministers. My focus here is to share a perspective on the India-US relationship that has emerged as the most important bilateral partnership. And mind you, this was predicted by President Biden in 2006. Less than a month ago, our Prime Minister Modi visited the United States for his first bilateral face-to-face summit with President Biden and the first in-person Quad Leaders Summit. It was a landmark visit. During his discussions with President, he identified the 5 T's that define the partnership: tradition, talent, trade, technology, and trusteeship. All these 5 aspects are underscored by a defining element: trust between the two countries. Prime Minister's visit to the United States was a testament to the enduring strength of our partnership. In the United States, relations with India have had bipartisan support, whether in the US Congress or in the White House. You would remember Prime Minister Modi's historic address to the US Congress in 2016, where he spoke about overcoming the hesitations of history. I have been witness to this transformation, having dealt with this relationship for nearly 25 years. From a time when our relations were colored by Cold War politics, India-US partnership has indeed come a long way, built on shared democratic and pluralistic values and connected by linkages of a large Indian-American diaspora. If you ask me what has led to this transformation, I would say increasing trust in our relationship. In the US, we see a very close friend and a strong partner who is critical to transforming the dreams and the development aspirations of 1.3 billion people into reality. Before I go further, I also want to give you a sense of the nature of the depth and the breadth of the partnership. You will appreciate what we mean by the sustained momentum in the ties. Just take the last 1 month after the visit of PM. We have had CDS visiting the United States, followed by Defense Secretary and Secretary of Defense Production. We have had health dialogue in Delhi, wherein an umbrella health MOU was signed. Then there was Industrial Security Agreement Summit to develop protocol for the exchange of classified information between the defense industries in both countries. We have had Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman visit India, Deputy USTR and Chief of Naval Operations. They also have visited India thereafter. Finance Minister had a substantive visit to the United States, which just concluded 2 days ago. Naval exercise Malabar Phase 2 happened off the coast of Bay of Bengal. Military exercise Yuddha Abhyas is currently underway in Alaska. Commerce and Industry Minister met USTR on the sidelines of G20. EM met Secretary Blinken virtually, along with the foreign ministers of Israel and UAE. On the industry side, USISPF and USIBC had their annual meetings, which again gave a lot of food for thought. Please remember, all these have happened in less than 1 month, covering various sectors from strategic to defense to trade to health in an era of unprecedented COVID. Friends, on the India-US ties today, I would like to make 5 broad points regarding what makes this partnership of bilateral and global significance. One, India-US relationship is people-driven, people-centric. People like you set the benchmark. Your aspirations guide us, and we need to live up to your expectations. Our real success is measured by how quickly and how effectively, as governments, we are able to match your expectations. And in this, industry, civil society, intelligentsia, strategic community, and fora like PAFI all have an important role to play. Two, India-US relationship creates huge positive advantages for the world. It is not just in the interest of India or US alone. A stronger India-US relationship is in the interest of the world. It brings with it global good. For example, when we combine US technology and India's manufacturing power, we make a huge difference. Look at our cooperation over the last year and a half during the pandemic. India and US collaborated on ensuring the integrity of medical supplies, providing essential medicines and PPEs at the time of need, and supporting each other during the more difficult phases. Today, under our science and technology partnership, more than 7 vaccines, and these are COVID-related vaccines, are under development. And under the Quad framework, our countries are collaborating on vaccine manufacture and delivery in the Indo-Pacific region. Three, I want to underline this aspect here. India-US relations stand on their own footing. It is not dependent or influenced by any third country. Viewing this relationship through a third country lens would be incorrect and inappropriate. Four, it is not that the relationship has not seen any challenges, but every time there was a challenge, as democracies, we have been able to sit down and talk across to each other, and that has made all the difference. We have emerged from every crisis stronger and better. And five, given the multifaceted nature of India-US relations, there is currently no area of human endeavor where India and the United States are not collaborating with each other. But what more can we do together? Given the true potential in this relationship, I feel there's a lot that remains to be achieved. And each one of us here has a role to play in transforming that potential into reality. The immediate priorities in this partnership can be grouped in 5 baskets: healthcare cooperation, the energy partnership, particularly renewable energy and climate action, the knowledge and education partnership, the tech and innovation cooperation, including cyber, digital, and startups, and the defense and strategic partnership. Each of these fields represent not only areas of G2G cooperation, but expanding economic opportunities. We can go deeper into some of these during our interaction. Now, before I conclude, I just have a thought to share. Given the broad canvas of our relationship, it's always important to look at the big picture. We need to have a broad vision. We cannot afford to work in silos or look at things piecemeal. All that we do should be building blocks of a large canvas, and that should be the guiding principle for way forward. Friends, you and I belong to a rich tradition where father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, taught us, in a gentle way, you can shake the world. India and the United States are destined just to do that for a richer, safer, stronger, and better world. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Sandhu. That was extremely comprehensive and makes some of us realize that, yes, India-US relationship does not have to be looked through a third country lens or even from regime to regime change. There are constants that exist between the two nations, and those constants are something that both countries have respected over decades, and that gives us a lot of confidence. Ambassador Sandhu, the question I want to ask you is, we are seeing the global pandemic and the manner in which it has impacted countries across the globe. There was a statement that came in from the United States when India resumed its vaccine exports. The question I want to ask you is, have these challenges of the pandemic, the fact that India is in a position where it can export vaccinations, there is manufacturing, and there is a indigenously made vaccination in India. Today, we have also completed the 100 crore vaccination landmark. Um, I'm just saying the challenge of the pandemic, does it or did it play a little bit of a cementing factor in the meeting that was held between the Prime Minister and President Biden just last month?
So, Navika, first, let me share it's a very proud moment today for us. And I can tell you that there is very strong and deep appreciation in the United States that we have crossed the 1 billion landmark, and all through the vaccines manufactured in India. You have absolutely mentioned about the Prime Minister's visit here. Uh, this was, as I have indicated there, it was a very successful, it was a landmark visit, uh, both from the bilateral perspective and the Quad perspective. And we have to just look at the joint statements which have been put out both on the bilateral front and the Quad front, and they will very clearly indicate to us that this is a strong visit. This had happened in a atmosphere of the pandemic, which is very unprecedented. Here we are still almost seeing 80,000 to 90,000 cases per day. So that's the kind of scenario in which the visit took place. But it showed the commitment of both the leaders that they met in person. And as I have indicated in my opening speech, healthcare was one of the very important areas. And when I say healthcare, I do keep in mind that both United States and India are also focused on what we call is an affordable healthcare. It's one of the priorities of President Biden here. And in affordable healthcare, you have affordable vaccines and affordable medicines. I don't know if you are aware that even at present, India is supplying almost 50 to 60% of generic drugs in United States. So that's the depth of the relationship and to the extent it can go. I'll just give you one example. About 6 years ago, we collaborated, that is, United States and India partnered in co-producing another vaccine for another virus called rotavirus. This co-production and partnership finally resulted in the cost of this vaccine coming down from $60 to $1. And we were together able to supply it to many of the developing countries, Africa and Latin America. So that's the kind of depth which our relationship has. Now, coming to the Quad, I just want to take 2 minutes there. The Prime Minister has described it as a force of global good. And I think the happening of the Quad Summit, and earlier we had the first virtual Quad Summit in March, definitely indicated that the center of economic and political gravity is Indo-Pacific region. And of course, I'm sure you know the origins of Quad. It was essentially a product when the tsunami had come. But today, the group is focused on delivering tangible results. And here, if I can just mention to you that three very clear practical areas of cooperation. One is COVID-19 vaccines, second is climate change, and third is critical technology. And here we are using each other's complementary strengths to work together. For example, in vaccines, it is the US technology, Johnson & Johnson in this case. It's the Japanese financing. India's bulk manufacturing capability, it's BioE here, and it's going to produce 1 billion vaccines. And do remember that that production will happen in India. So the capacity building is going to happen in India. It's already underway. And finally, Australia's lift power. Similarly, we have also got into other areas, including public health, and as I've mentioned, Quad critical emerging technologies. And in that, 5G, semiconductor supply chains, development of inclusive technical standards, advanced biotechnologies, etc. And 4 5 new areas: space, cyber security, infrastructure, education. Education for the first time has come in. There is Quad Fellowship Program that would enable STEM students from 4 countries to study in each other countries. So essentially, this meeting resulted in very practical, people-oriented, and also for global good decisions.
Very well stated, Ambassador Sandhu. Ambassador Sandhu, while the Prime Minister was in the US, there was this face-to-face Quad meeting. With your ringside view of that meeting, um, people who are attending this particular session would want to know what are the next steps for strengthening this coalition of Quad countries, and how is it going to take forward the strategic interests of India in the field of both technology and trade?
So as I just indicated to you that Quad is a much wider initiative, and it has essentially undertaken actual tangible issues and has a positive agenda. And the areas of COVID-19 vaccines, climate change, critical technologies, they are very much there. But this time, in addition, we have also touched upon, as I've mentioned to you, space. In space, there'll be exchange of satellite data. There's monitor and adapt to climate change, disaster preparedness, then sustainable uses of oceans and marine resources. And finally, responding to challenges in shared dominions. Similarly, in cyber state, there is government and industry which will be coming together, and they'll be the driving force. They are focusing on cyber standards, secure software, workforce and talent building, and finally, have secure and trustworthy digital infrastructure. In infrastructure itself, we are going to be undertaking mapping of the region infrastructural needs, then providing technical assistance to each other, and also promoting sustainable infrastructure development. And I've already mentioned to you about the education. So therefore, we can expect in the coming days, and especially in the next 2 and 3 years, that Quad will be undertaking focused, people-oriented, practical measures which will benefit not only the region, Indo-Pacific, and also world at large. And as I've indicated earlier, the strengthening of Quad is a very clear indication that Indo-Pacific is the priority. And here I just want to take a minute. You will recall some months back, in fact, to be precisely when Secretary Austin was being introduced. At that time, there was a slip. People started saying that with Biden administration, the priority will be back on Asia Pacific. But as you can see, from there to now, and Quad itself has given a very clear signal that Indo-Pacific is the focus.
Uh, Fantastic. That's heartening to note, and with your presence there, clearly paving the way for that engagement. Another question that many people would want to ask is that on strategic ties, on defense ties, India and the United States have a great relationship moving forward. But on the aspect of trade, the kind of potential that exists. Uh, do you think we've quite achieved that potential, or do you think there is more that can be done? And what are the steps that we could take in the near future to push the envelope on that?
So, Namika, this is a very important question. Our trade engagement, no doubt, is an issue that is very significant, and not just for companies, but also for our respective governments. Now, India and US do have a robust trade and economic partnership. Today, United States is our largest trading partner. We have touched 150 billion in 2019. There's double-digit growth in the last 10 years. But you have very rightly pointed out that despite all this, there is a lot that still needs to be covered. So when Prime Minister met President Biden, he spoke about the trade as a key aspect of our engagement and how the goods and services offered by India and the United States were complementary to each other. Now, during the discussions between the leaders, they agreed on the need to deliver tangible outcomes in trade, and to that end, they have tasked their respective trade ministers with early discussions. So we are going to have trade policy forum that will meet before end of the year. We are going to have commercial dialogue and CEO forums in early 2022. The High Technology Cooperation Group, which has been lying dormant since 2014, is also being revived early next year. Now, these are important mechanisms to resolve outstanding issues and thereby reap the benefits of enhanced trade. I may also mention that the CIM and the USTR, as well as with Commerce Secretary, they have been in direct touch. In fact, the Commerce and Industry Minister and USTR have already met last week on the sidelines of G20. The US Commerce Secretary was very much a participant in the Quad meetings. So there is a lot of energy on both sides to carry it forward. And I think it will not be remiss if I mentioned earlier this week, the finance minister concluded a successful visit of the United States. She co-chaired the US-India Economic Financial Partnership with her counterpart, Secretary Janet Yellen. And the Fed Chair Powell was also participant. Now, much like the trade side, the economic agenda is also a key pillar in the bilateral agenda. So, EPF, as we call it, is an effective framework which has expanded bilateral economic ties and built a strong foundation. So, both the Finance Minister and Secretary Yellen, in their discussions, touched upon key areas. One, economic recovery from the pandemic, then macroeconomic outlook, then cooperation on global economic matters, climate finance, support to infrastructure funding, and finally, combating the financing of terrorism under FATF. Now, beyond government interactions, there's also a lot of movement on the industry side. You know that United States is an important investor in India. So during the Prime Minister's visit and also in FM's visit, they met a number of industry leaders, one-to-one interactions. Now, these meetings have helped and have been able to project the great openings that are there in India. The CEOs that Prime Minister and FM met cut across different sectors: health, aerospace and defense, private equity, energy and renewables, infrastructure, IT, banking, transportation. And EM and CIM have also been regularly engaging the US industry. So I'm confident that both the economic and the trade pillar of our relationship will further add to the strategic depth of our partnership.
Fantastic, because trade and investment are an area that India keeps a very close watch on, and would expect it to grow in the positive direction. Ambassador Sandhu, I also want to ask you, the Indian diaspora, it's not only been a pillar of strength on the two sides, helping build the Indo-US relations, but the fact is that they uh, play a very critical role in building corporations in the United States, and also in the economic development at multiple levels. I mean, it's part of folklore that Silicon Valley has so many Indians, who bring that cutting edge technology. Where do you think we can shift gears towards a higher level of strategic cooperation and economic engagement through this diaspora engagement?
No, absolutely, Navika. The 4 million strong Indian diaspora is not only a pillar of strength, but a number of leading Indians on the economic side have been strong advocates for India-US relationship. And here, I think it's very appropriate that I mention that during the second wave of the COVID attack in India, the diaspora played a very, very strong role, including the industry. This is much even beyond what the administration did. And here, of course, I want to remind everyone that right at the top of the issue in India, President Biden had picked up the phone and called Prime Minister Modi and mentioned to him that United States very clearly remembers that India came to US help when they required it. And President Biden mentioned that United States will stand shoulder to shoulder with India. All kind of assistance that was needed was rushed, and in that, the diaspora played a very important role. There was extraordinary mobilization amongst the business community, organizations like Business Roundtable, Chamber of Commerce, USIBC, USISPF. They all worked together, ensured whatever emergency supplies they could supply. And here I want to mention that many of these were led by the Indian Americans. Almost, as per our rough estimation, close to $500 million worth assistance was sent by the industry. And I've had interactions with more than 70 US CEOs. And again, it's remarkable how many of them are Indian Americans and they occupy leading ranks in the industry. Of course, it is natural that they take interest in India and how their companies have consistently expanded and upgraded their investments. And closely related to their success is also the movement of high skilled professionals and education and knowledge partnership. The young in both our countries will be the driving force behind the strengthening of our ties in the future. And you are aware that large number of young Indians come to US for higher studies. Currently, almost 200,000 Indian students are here, and two-thirds of them are in STEM areas. And they ensure that US retains the competitive edge. And many of them have also built up startups and companies. In fact, very interestingly, one such couple, they were in India, they have come back and they started what we know is Bharat Biotech. That's one of the shining examples in India. And here too, Navika, if you switched on any TV channel in the last 1.5 years, you will see an Indian origin doctor speaking about the pandemic. I can take a number of them. In my conversations in the US, I have always pointed out to the high skilled professionals who have brought in important skill sets and they bridge the technological gap, making US companies globally competitive and generating more jobs in both our countries. Therefore, this diaspora has played a crucial role in the US economic success and has made US a global leader in technology. They are one of the strongest bridges between our two countries. So it's not just quantity, but quality too. But I also want to mention to you that I have been urging the community here to connect their children with India, because it's important not only from emotional and cultural end, but also from economic point of view. They also decide on how India and the US relations would evolve in the years ahead.
Absolutely. Rooted in India and growing in the United States would possibly be the best formula. Ambassador Sandhu, it's been a fantastic engagement with you. I hope the audiences have enjoyed this as much as I have. Um, uh, Pleasure to have you on this forum with the PAFI uh, Public Affairs Forum of India making this possible. Thanking each one of them. But I hand it over to Vinita Sethi to take this forward after this very engaging session with Ambassador Sandhu.
Thank you,
Indeed,
Navika.
very engaging. Thank you. Thank you so much, Navika, and thank you so much, Ambassador Sandhu. In fact, I can't help but just say that what a defining moment for US-India alliance today with your stellar leadership. And it really enthuses us to, also do our part in building this relationship. You have very beautifully outlined not just what our, high-level visits have achieved for us, but the capacity that India-US partnership today has to create a win-win solution, be it in education, healthcare, production for the world. And I'm not going to take more time because we are running. This is the last session of the day, but just the takeaway for PAFI, we've been working in the public affairs space. All the sectors that you mentioned, I personally belong to Apollo group, and healthcare and vaccines has been very close to our hearts. And we know really upfront how much effort you have put in getting us access when we really need it for all the life-saving equipment, for all the APIs and everything. So we also have, members, as you see, from IT, telecom, defense. And just before your session, the Vice Chairman, Niti Aayog, Dr. Rajiv Kumar mentioned how we need to increase market access if we have to reach that target of exports and make a mark. So in all these areas, we want to commit in some way and take your guidance as we go forward, and how we from private sector can work with you on trade policy forum, on all the commercial dialogues that you're creating. Of course, we are members of other associations, but PAFI is unique because this is where we really do the candid public policy work. And anything that you need from us, we will be very happy to produce white papers, surveys, research, and help take this relationship forward. And finally, may I just also mention that in Quad and in other arrangements that we have, PAFI has also committed to promoting more women in the workforce. So I do believe in Quad, there's a specific focus on having women get into production. So anything, again, that we can, and Navika, this is again very close to our hearts, we have to see the women go up in the workforce. And in PAFI, this is another commitment that we want to build into the India-US relationship. So with that, I really want to thank you, Ambassador Sandhu, for taking time out from your very, very busy schedule, which I know is unending. Navika, thank you so much for steering this discussion. And Ishtiaq, thank you for giving the welcome. To all the delegates who have been with us since morning, our gratitude. And we hope to see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have the session starting with Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Before I end, Ajay and Shubho, would you like to close with anything that I may have missed out?
Anita, I just want to add for you and Navika that in Quad, one of the leading lights, the strength in vaccine production is BioE, and that's headed by a woman.
Yes, absolutely. So that's amazing. Thank you so much. And we look forward to working to strengthen this partnership with you more.
Thank you, Ambassador. And this is not the last, but first of many interactions with PAFI, and really appreciate you taking time. And Navika, thank you so much. It was good to see you also after a long time. Good night and good afternoon to you, Ambassador. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best wishes.